correct. There was no point moving to any different city. However, like it was basically either Pune or we stay here.
What percentage do you think you're confident of taking it in terms of coming back? And that was probably like a challenge to convince the interviewers that, I'm very serious about moving back and this is what it is.
And there are plenty of opportunities. At this moment, people are looking for you, and if you're an NRI, you are still sought out here because you bring that knowledge and culture from them. And Indian companies are actually interested in putting that culture in you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Desi Return. Today, I'm excited to have Allhad and Aditi on our show. Both of them have spent close to 9.5 years in US and close to 2.5 years in Netherlands before making a decision to move back to India. I'm really looking forward to the discussion because they moved from US to Netherlands during the peak of COVID, and also the reason to move back to India, and they have been living here for almost close to 2 years, how their life has been. And also there is a diverse background. Allhad is with industrial engineering and Aditi is on academics. So, diverse information and the discussion that I'm really looking forward. With that, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Avinash.
Great. So thank you very much for being on the show. Let's start with a bit about your background, why you went to US and the reasons to move back to Netherlands and what made you to think to move to India. I think that would be very helpful.
I'll just start. So my name is Allhad Kulkarni. So I did my undergrad from Pune. I'm an engineer, and then I did my production engineering over there. And this was 2011 when I passed out of my undergrad degree, and I wanted to do industrial engineering. And at that time, there were not enough universities that were offering like a master's course focusing on industrial engineering. And that's why I applied not just to US but also a couple of universities in Europe. But I got a good admit from Northeastern University where the program suited my needs, and that's where I decided to move to US in 2011. Completed my master's degree in 2013. During that time, I also got an internship opportunity with Audi of America. So I was in Virginia, London for 6 months. And after that, I did a couple of jobs in medical devices with Zimmer, AbbVie. So I was in Midwest region. And at that time, I wanted to always move back to Boston side because we were going to get married in 2015. So I shifted to Connecticut, closer to Boston with another medical device company. And eventually then I got a job with Staples, which basically transformed my career. And then this was 2016 that I was hired by Staples. So in Staples, I did pretty much like from new product development to category management throughout that journey. And then I was with Staples for 4 years, and then we had an office in Netherlands. So at that time, Trump was the president, and because of his tariff rules for US, everybody started thinking about the China plus one strategy, that they wanted to create opportunities outside of China because everybody was too much reliant on that. So that's where they thought India is a bigger market. And the head of Europe approached me saying that would you be interested in shifting over to Netherlands and take over the leadership opportunity by growing India business. And then we thought through that. And this was 2019 summer. That was the time where our son was also born. So we had a lot going on during that time as well. But eventually we decided to take up that opportunity. We shifted there and COVID hit. But that basically helped my career a lot. I knew I grew the Staples business in India significantly. And during that time also, like post-COVID, I was traveling a lot of times to India to see the factories, meeting new customers. And I saw the makeshift of how when I left India versus when this was in 2021, how India has changed, like the ease of doing business, the banking structure, the people's willingness to take higher risks with the entrepreneurial startup culture that was going on. And then that's where me and Aditi started having a discussion. We actually went for a wedding, my my close cousin's wedding, and we started asking questions, thinking through about it, and that's where we started having a feel good uh, scenario. And then that's where we decided that we would like. She was offered to move back to US as well, um, but with all those visa structures and doing a lot of pros and cons, we eventually decided that we should move back to India. And then it was December 2022 that we shifted back to India.
Got it. And what about you, Aditi?
Yeah, so back to my background. So I've done my mechanical engineering, bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Pune. So I'm basically from Pune itself, born and brought up in the city. I moved to US to do my master's in industrial engineering. There's no particular reason. It was honestly more like everyone was giving GRE, everyone was giving TOEFL, and let me also do it. It was more of that to begin with. But then I got into same Northeastern University program in industrial engineering. I went there. I actually got a I met my PhD advisor there. Very good professor. That's how I got interested in doing more of research, getting into a PhD program. So then I started my PhD in industrial engineering at the same university, Northeastern. I finished my PhD in 2017. And at the same time, my own department at Northeastern offered me to start teaching there. So I started teaching at Northeastern. At the same time, I also started teaching at Mr. Polytechnic Institute. That happened through a professor that I met at a conference. He offered to teach one class, and that's how it basically went on. So I taught at both the universities for about 2 years. And then at that time, the postdoc opportunity at MIT was floating around and a lot of people were applying for it. I thought I'll take my chances, and I applied for a postdoc. I got into MIT for completing the postdoc. So I did my postdoc for a year, and then that again resulted into a full-time job at MIT. So yeah, I was instructor at MIT for about 4 years. So right within this time, as Allhad mentioned, we moved to Netherlands, and that was right during COVID time. So actually, because of COVID, since everything was online, my job at MIT continued, and I was working for MIT even from the Netherlands. And then, then when we moved back to India, I got a faculty position. So I had my job in hand. We moved back in December 2022, and then right in a month, I joined as an assistant professor.
No, yeah, thank you very much for both of you to give such a detailed background and overview of your journey abroad. So maybe let's dive into a little bit about some of these, journeys, right? Especially the transition to Netherlands during the COVID. You have your newborn, and moving to a different country with a different role. But luckily, it's the company that you're very familiar with, but it's just going to be different headquarters. And, with the pandemic, how was the move? And anything that you would share, like, your experiences, anything that you would say, like, you would have done differently? Just curious on that. I mean, I know it's a...
Yeah, so I moved slightly earlier. So I moved in January over there just to get a hang of the country. And basically, there was a huge housing crisis. So there was no point for 3 of us to move there. So I moved slightly earlier, figured a place, and then basically just during the spring break or that time, I went back to start planning their move to Netherlands. And I was going to be there for 2 weeks, and within 1 week, the borders shut down. So technically, I was stuck. You can say now that I was stuck we still had our house, like a apartment in US.
Yeah.
But from a visa perspective, I came on a tourist visa. So I was stuck in the US for a few months. And then I think this was time where I had to, my residency permit would have been gone if I stayed for more than 5 months time. So that's where after 4 months hit, I emailed the consulate in Netherlands, saying that this is the situation and we would like I would like to move back. And then they said that we just opened the doors and we like there will be a flight arranged during that time. So that's where then three of us, my son had turned by that time a year old, and at the time, so the flight was completely for us technically, because there were hardly like 7, 8 passengers traveling. And then we shifted back to Netherlands. Again, everything was closed down. There were a couple of grocery stores that were open. So that's the time actually we started learning about the Dutch culture. Um, Fortunately, being in Europe, it's so very well connected, and Netherlands, everybody speaks English. So we didn't find that that much of a cultural shock while shifting over to the Netherlands, because every word, like people were helpful, and if we couldn't figure out something, people would answer us back in Netherlands,
Yeah.
in English. Sorry. So the move, so there were a lot of like differences in that thing. Like in US, there are much more welcoming, like friendly nature. Everything is open, everything is huge. Whereas this is smaller. People are more reserved compared to the US. So first 2 years, pretty much we didn't have much of any social or friend circle, or like 1 year at least.
Yeah.
Um, so that's about it.
Cool. And Aditi, in your case, I know you mentioned, I think you're able to continue the teaching while like, being outside. So how did it work out? I'm maybe curious more on if you're okay to share from a visa status, right? I think Allhad has mentioned on his visa, like you are maintaining the H1 and you just like, continuing to work there. I'm just curious on that. Yeah.
No, so basically what happened, since we decided to move to the Netherlands before COVID, right? So at that time, it was like a proper in-person position that I was working
Yes.
at. Like I was an instructor at MIT. And so when we decided to move, I sent an email to my faculty director that, this is the move that we are planning and I'll be, quitting soon because of all of this. And right after 2 weeks, COVID hit, and then everything went online. So that's when our faculty director decided that, since anyway, everyone's working online. And at that time, a lot of actually companies and universities in the US allowed people to work from anywhere. Like you can be in any country and work for any institution. So they said we could work it out under this clause. And so we moved to the Netherlands. Since then I've had no visa to go back to US. So I was in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, I was on a dependent visa, right, on him.
Yeah.
But there, the people on dependent visa could work. So that allowed me to work for MIT from the Netherlands.
Got it. No, thank you. So just taking a step, I think spending 9.5 years in US, getting 2.5 years, like what was the triggering point to say like this is the time we want to move back to India, and how did you come to that conclusion, and what was the planning that was done beforehand? Anything that you can talk about, like how you planned or how you timed your move, and what's the thought process behind it?
Right. So most people who live in US always have this idea of going back to India at back of their mind, right? A lot of people have that. We have always had that somewhere in our minds. It's just that we keep waiting for the right time, and then that somehow never comes, or you're just like, you start enjoying the life that you have there. For us, it was sort of the same thing. We always had that in our mind that we want to move back to India. The major reason why we moved at this particular time was mostly from our son's point of view. So as generally you see kids start education in the Netherlands, they start going to school at the age of 4. So we were thinking if he starts his education in the Netherlands, and then after a couple of years, we move him to India, it's going to be difficult for him to adjust. There's always a comparison that happens, that my life in Netherlands was like this, or my life in US was like this, and now my parents have got me here and the life is different. So we just wanted him to do education in the same system. and then just get adjusted in that right at the beginning. So we then decided to move to India before he turns 4 and basically starts his education.
No, thanks for sharing that. So was there anything in terms of the planning? I know it makes sense. So like, before you start school, that's when you decided you need to be in India. Is there anything from a planning perspective, from a career transition, moving back to India, or from a financial planning or the logistics, anything that you can talk about? Like, and for how long have you been planning for, right? I mean, let's say, I think it's December 2022 is like you decided, like, was it planned for a year, 6 months, and what was the planning process?
Yeah. So I think it started December 2021. You can say that. So one of the things was we were trying to come to visit to India, but a day before our flight, we found out we were COVID positive. So at that time, we couldn't make our trip to India. So we had to cancel a lot of plans and stuff. There were a lot going on. We had to cancel a lot of things. And then just like then me and us just started talking through doing that time that we just keep on doing this every December. We spend time, but we just, and it was a time where she was also asked to move back. So either to US. So
yeah.
MIT was calling her back. So we knew that probably we'll have to make a call, and like basically we laid down all the pros and cons of all the different countries. And so technically a year down the line, we started having those discussions. And by March, we had made a plan that we will always be in this situation no matter what, at any age we are. Let's see if we can move back to India. And then, but our main criteria during that time was one of us has to have a job or at least something in hand before we make that transition. So then that's where, like, she being a PhD and a postdoc, her opportunities in our cities are like, or the quality of the work are limited. So then that's where she started applying for a job, and I had made a plan that I would not do a full-time job in India. So that's where then she took the risk, and then she found a very good job during that time that would at that moment it was basically that she could take care of the entire house with enough savings. If I didn't get anything for 1 year, 2 year, whatever, and I wanted to have that time. So this was, I think, June, July that we found, like, she had an offer letter in hand and a joining date starting January. And then from that moment, we had our own house as well. So we started putting our house on the market, doing the reverse planning, started looking for schools. Technically, we pretty much, like, from a logistics perspective, those 4 months pretty much went on selling everything which we had in our hand, because the job was settled. We were going to come to the same city that we grew up in. So from stay perspective or health perspective, we didn't have those challenges because our parents are from the same city.
Yeah.
So we knew that even if we don't have something, there will be always enough people who would help us around.
Yeah.
So that entire 4 months basically went in finding like school for my son, and getting rid of everything like banking, taxes, tax related stuff, insurances that we had over there, making sure that by the time we leave in December, everything should be sorted. So it definitely takes minimum of 6 months from the day you have something in your hand. So whereas it could be any longer, depending upon the job, the right job you find for yourself.
Cool. So maybe a couple of quick questions there. Was the plan to move to Pune always the thought process there? So no other city. So it's like that's where you grew up, that's where the parents are, and you want to be there. Okay.
Correct. There was no point moving to any different city. However, like, it was basically either Pune or we stay here.
Yeah.
That if we cannot be closer to our family members, closer to the culture we grew up in, it's better that we just stay here.
Yeah.
So we always wanted to live and settle down in Pune.
Makes sense. And then the other question I just want to confirm. So you said like selling the house. So is that in Netherlands? Like how is the process there? So just curious on that, especially maybe some of the logistics for someone moving from Europe, how hard it is, or is it very similar to like how, you sell in US? So just curious on that.
So yeah, it was challenging because the market has started dropping down by that time. But you cannot sell the house on your own. So we hired basically an agent who helped us sell the house. So during that time also, that you have to move out of the, like, there were so many viewings, you have to move out of the house, come in, move out, come in. So it was definitely a stressful time, that we didn't know if we would be able to sell the house with the right cost at the right amount of time. But luckily, 1 month prior to that, we got the deal which we were looking for, and then we moved back.
Got it. And then maybe switching gears a little bit on the career side. So Aditi, I think you mentioned, I think you have started applying from Netherlands for the roles in India. How did it go? Like, this is also another question. I know academics might be different than people who are in the corporate side, especially like how much serious the people would take that you're actually moving in to India and so on. So maybe can you share your experiences about how the job search and how it went, and how was your experience?
Sure. So how we basically started is we knew we wanted to move. So the deciding on the location was not a decision for us. I just shortlisted universities from Pune where I could see some positions where I thought I could go and work that way. So actually, I'm currently an assistant professor at Flame University. That was the first application that I made, and I eventually got through. But as you mentioned, I had my interview, and then probably one of the questions that most people had asked me was that, how serious are you for coming back to Pune? That if we give you an offer, what percentage do you think you're confident of taking it in terms of coming back? And that was probably like a challenge to convince the interviewers that, I'm very serious about moving back, and this is what it is. The pluses that I had was that my family is in Pune, my parents were in Pune. So when I say we want to move back, to be close to our family, it's sort of matches because they are in Pune. So if I get a job in Pune, I'm most likely going to take it. I think they just took that chance on me, and then I accepted it. So that's how it happened.
Okay. Sounds like I think you had a very smooth process. Seems like you are more sought out, and they just want to confirm if they offer, you're taking it. Sounds like they want to have that confirmation. So Allhad, in your case, I know you wanted to kind of get into more entrepreneur side. I think that's what.
Yeah.
So how did it go, or how is it going? Just curious. I think, if someone who is thinking along those lines, especially someone who spent close to more than a decade, 12 years, or, more than a decade in the corporate world, how are the opportunities in India? And someone who is coming from a medical device and who is in an industrial engineering, which is not a common roles or like common, things in India. So just curious on your experience with the career transition and how it.
So in the last few years, I was more on the category management, sourcing side of the world. So honestly, once she got the job, like I was not even looking for something that aggressively, because we had too many things on our plate, like selling the house, finding the things, and then I decided I'll do some freelancing kind of a work to get a hang of how the work culture is, because I was going to get into a proper corporate world. I still had that fear of like how the corporate culture is going to be.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to say that let me try some freelancing work. And October, November time, I got a good opportunity to start off my like a freelancing work. There is a company based in food company based in Pune. The owner happens to be my friend, and then he offered me that why don't you come and help us wherever you can, and that's how the journey started. One thing led to another, and then the ability. So the biggest factor for me is the ability to do, like I had so many ideas living in US, Netherlands, wanted to do multiple things, but because of H1 restrictions and those, you cannot do multiple things, right? So right now I'm enjoying my freedom, that now I'm able to do whatever I can. Like my dad has a couple of pathological laboratories. I can help him grow on that part. I can do my consulting work. I can be around for anything that is needed. So this freedom I enjoy a lot, and obviously there are differences with the way people work here. In US or Europe, we are very structured. Uh, there is a specific agenda when you're going into a meeting, whereas there is a significant difference of how you are doing the work here. So it took definitely time to adjust that part, but so far it's working out.
Okay, great. So I know it's been maybe getting close to 2 years in December. So like, maybe close to 18 months. So how has the life been for you and for the kid? And, kids adjustment and so on. So anything that you can share on that?
So I think my son just adjusted very well because probably his age also helped. He was very young. He was three and a half when we moved here. And suddenly from, COVID times and such, low social life, he came to India where we have all the relatives and so many kids to play around and everything. And he being a very social kid, he adjusted very well. In fact, he's very happy to be here, and that sort of makes us a little relaxed about the move, and just to see that he has adjusted well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think.
Yeah, of the three of us, he was the quickest to adjust. I can say that.
Cool. And how did you go about choosing the school for him? In terms of which school to put in, is there any like a thought process behind it? Because one of the main reason is before you start the schooling, you wanted to move. So just curious, I think, in terms of how you approached or how you went about deciding on a school.
So one of the important factors that we learn from the Western culture are they are very independent, right? All of them are very independent. They have the ability to make their own decisions from a very young age. So we wanted to find a school which is a blend of like our culture, that it teaches the values that the Indian system provides, uh, plus the ability for them to take their own decisions. It's okay to make mistakes, do your things on your own. This was our main criteria in looking for schools. So we started looking around, meeting different like principals, and then it was still a lottery system. So again, a luck factor on our side. You can say that when we came in, we put him to a nearby school, and then this year, like when he went to senior KG, we applied for the school which we were really looking for. And then we got it, like the cultural values, or like they teach basically things that no job or none of the jobs are like, there is no hierarchy in any job. Every job is important. You have to clean your own dishes after you have used it. All those factors are very important in the principles of the school. So and he got through it, so we are happy about that as well.
Great. Cool. So I know like it's been like more than a decade in US and Europe. So is there anything that you miss, from US or Netherlands living here in Pune?
Yeah, I think so. Allhad and my son, as he mentioned, they both are very social people, and I'm not. So I do miss a little bit of peace at times that I used to get there, because here the social life is overwhelming for me. Like in US, it was very clear that weekdays are different and weekends are different, right? So that doesn't happen here. You socialize on weekdays, you should socialize on weekends. So that is something I struggled with a lot initially. I still struggle at times, but I've accepted it now. But yeah, I do miss a little bit of peace, like a little bit of quietness, or like social life.
Right.
Social life.
Traffic is one part. Like obviously you feel the fatigue and everything with the traffics going on back, and we grew up with that. Work culture is one of the factors that when we came in, we were like 8 o'clock is an 8 o'clock, which doesn't happen here. So getting used to that factors, plus the freedom to move. Like I have the freedom, but like again, for the approvals for vacations and stuff, it's a different system. Nobody questions you about your vacation time or anything in Western countries.
Especially
In Netherlands, they actually encourage you to. It was a part of my contract that you have to take 2 weeks of vacation. Like I've never seen somebody writing in an offer letter saying that you have to take 2 weeks of vacation. So those were like there were different value systems. So these are definitely the factors that you could miss. You had much more personal time for yourself, especially on Saturdays or Sundays. And like you come home at 5. Here sometimes it takes longer. You're stuck in traffic. Those are the factors we definitely miss.
No, thanks for sharing those. Yeah, for sure. Is there anything that we haven't touched that you would like to bring up, from your journey that would benefit the future aspirants who are considering to move to India? Anything that you wanted to bring up?
On my side, I really like the quote which Ratan Tata did, that take a decision and make it right. Like it has stuck to my mind for many, many years. Else you are always in those limbo, right? Like whether it's right or wrong, whether it's right or wrong, should I do it or not? Like if like for me, it was like if I am half of the time I'm thinking about how my life would be in India, I would never be happy in Netherlands or US. Or like what if my parents are needing it, that what if. So it's not that difficult as it seems. Like obviously like the older you get it becomes difficult, but if you have that persistence or you want to make that move, it will, and in the end it will work out. So that's probably one thing I will. And India is not the India that was in 2010 level. There are plenty of opportunities. At this moment, people are looking for you, and if you're an NRI, you are still sought out here because you bring that knowledge and culture from them. And Indian companies are actually interested in putting that culture in you. This was one of the factors which I was approached for, that why don't you bring those value systems over here, because people are not trained enough. So I help bring that culture in a couple of my clients as well.
Yeah. No, thanks a lot. Anything from your side, Aditi?
I think, just to add to what you were saying, but I'll just say that don't wait for the right time to come. If you want to move back, just plan for it and do it. Of course, there are certain conditions that you want to have a job of your own choice, but unless you start taking the steps towards it, it's not going to happen. So yeah, if you are thinking, then you need to plan a little bit and then take steps for that.
Completely agree. I mean, thinking is one aspect, but making a decision and act on it, right? I think, and otherwise, no need to think about it, because otherwise time flies by and you won't make any decision. That's completely agree. And as you said, if you move from any place to another place, it's just an adjustment. I think it's a persistent, and you just have to stick to why you made the decision and give it enough time to make sure things would work out or happen. I mean, again, anybody moving from a comfortable life to a new place is not comfortable for a certain duration, but the main driving factor has to be there and make it work. I think I just completely echo with your points there. So thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your journey with us today. And good luck with everything, with your academic and with your business and the son growing up. So thanks a lot, and have a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us on this insightful journey of Desi Return. If you enjoyed this episode and want to explore more stories and expert advice, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Don't forget to leave a comment below with your thoughts and experiences. By the way, check out the links in the description below for our Facebook group and social media for updates and engaging discussions, as well as connecting with fellow Desi Returners. Thank you once again, and until next time, may your Desi Return journey be filled with joy, growth, and endless possibilities.